everyone. Welcome to HR Works, brought to you by BLR. I'm your host, Steve Bruce. HR Works provides clear, relevant, actionable information on topics that matter to HR professionals. When you're armed with best practices, plus the knowledge to keep your organization in compliance, HR works. The holiday season is nearly upon us, and for many employers, that means it's time to plan the end-of-the-year company party. According to a recent BLR survey, nearly 3 in 4 companies provide a year-end celebration of some kind to celebrate the holidays or just to say thank you to their employees. When planning that party, the focus is naturally on event details such as when and where the party will be held, what food will be served, and how to ensure a pleasant outing for employees while likely working within a budget. But what can often get overlooked in the planning process are legal considerations and the potential liability for employers if something goes wrong during, or in some cases even after, the event. To shed some light on these issues and provide tips and best practices on how to ensure your organization's year-end event is safe and incident-free, we've asked Michelle Lee Flores of Cozen O'Connor to join us. Michelle focuses her practice on all aspects of employment litigation, including jury and bench trials, arbitration, mediation, and pre-litigation negotiations involving sex, race, religion, age, and disability harassment and discrimination, and wage and hour violations, including class actions and wrongful termination. Michelle is a frequent lecturer and author of various articles on employment law published in the Los Angeles Daily Journal, Employment Law 360, and Los Angeles Business Journal, and has been a guest legal commentator on several television shows such as Studio 11 LA on Fox TV and KUSI San Diego. She was most recently named a 2016 California Super Lawyer, and previously she was named a 2014 and 2015 California Super Lawyer and selected as a Super Lawyers Rising Star. She earned her law degree from the University of California at Los Angeles School of Law and her bachelor's degree, magna cum laude, from Arizona State University, where she was a member of Phi Beta Kappa. Welcome to HR Works, Michelle.
Well, thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here.
One of the first decisions a company needs to make about its holiday party is location, whether to host its party on company property or at a third-party establishment such as a restaurant or club. So what are the advantages and disadvantages to employers for hosting the parties on-site versus off-site, and which of these do you recommend and why?
Well, as far as recommending, I would say I'm going to give the typical lawyer answer, which is it depends. And it really depends on the goals of the company. And what I mean by that is sometimes the employees will see a party on premises as not as festive because they go there to work every day, as opposed to a off-site third party, whether it be a restaurant or some other type of venue. And so really some thought should be put to whether or not you want to have, what is this party saying to your employees? One of the things that I think a lot of employers think about is, well, if we have it at a restaurant or some other third-party venue, that liability will be eliminated. And I can say that depending on the states and depending on the particular facts, liability is not necessarily going to be eliminated if you have it at another location, because, and this is one of the things is it considered work-related? So, as far as the advantages and disadvantages is, it might seem more festive if it's at another location. Certainly, however, depending on where that location is, some employees might feel that is out of their out of their zone. It's harder to get to. It's more of a trek. And again, all of these things you want to have as voluntary. You want to make a party that says thank you or happy holidays or end of year, the year was great or we survived it or whatever the particular message is going to be, or all of those perhaps. But one of the things is we want to make sure that it's voluntary and that people feel that they are not pressured to go necessarily, but that this is for them if they want to participate.
Okay, that's helpful. Now, you mentioned work-related. What's the significance of whether the event is considered work-related?
Well, one of my basic commentaries on these is if you are interacting with coworkers, regardless of the situation, good practice is to always think that it is work-related. Being mindful that your interactions with coworkers could affect your workplace regardless of when those interactions are. One of the things, however, as far as is it work-related, whether or not liability would attach is another question. And again, that's case and fact specific. It depends on the state laws as well. But again, efforts to reduce liability, you can make can't totally eliminate it, but if you make it voluntary, it does allow for that to say, well, this was voluntary, you weren't required to come. But again, I always recommend for friends, family, and even my clients to think of if it's an activity where there is coworkers involved, then it could be work-related for purposes of interaction, but may not be work-related for purposes of liability. But again, it's one thing to think, well, would this arise in a lawsuit? Because I get that question all the time. Is it illegal? Would it arise in something? But one of the things to think about is how could this start or create an issue that wasn't first wouldn't have been there otherwise, but because you're interacting with your coworkers.
I
see.
Like
an internal investigation, for example.
Okay.
Nobody wants to have a contentious situation with a coworker. I mean, I think we can all agree on that one. It's better to go to work and have pleasant interactions and go home.
Sure. So if it is a work-related event, do employers and employees need to concern themselves with adhering to company policies? And if so,
Absolutely.
Why? Oh, they do.
I'm sorry.
They do, huh?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. When I think it's a good practice to have communication before these events and to remind employees that although it's voluntary and although it is meant to be as a thank you and a year-end lively and cheerful event, we don't want to say or do anything that would necessarily offend any of our coworkers. We want to be mindful of various perspectives, and therefore keeping in mind that dress code, I always say keep it clean, keep it classy, keep it clean. You also want to remind them of the policies against harassment, which isn't just sexual harassment. It could be any of the various characteristics that are protected, as well as just really in good taste. Keeping things in good taste.
Okay, thank you. Now, according to our latest survey, 36% of companies who sponsor a party invite employees' spouses and or significant others to attend the celebration. Now, how would you recommend employers approach adherence to company policies when non-employees are among the guests?
Sure. And one of the things that I want to, before answering that question is, and this has just been a personal thought of mine for a variety of years, is I think it's great to allow your employees to invite a spouse or significant other, but I would suggest that if someone doesn't have a spouse or a significant other, let's open it up to those that could have a guest, simply just a guest. So it could be, a spouse, significant other, or friend, because then that could absolutely lend to and assist in one of the things that I like to do, which is encourage a designated driver. So, and then, those single folks out there don't feel like they can't bring a guest. So diversity and inclusion with them, bringing a guest can be of help in a variety of ways to make the party more fun for the employee. It could also lend itself to a safer ride home. But also, as far as to your question, how to recommend employers to get those non-employees, I think, again, communication's the key here. Part of the gentle reminder that goes out prior to these events, which should include the reminders that we need to be inclusive and mindful of how our interactions will be taken by a variety of people. We want to say that part of the agreement for the guest, whoever that guest is that they're going to conduct themselves in good taste, professionally, not to suggest that we can't have fun, but we can have fun and still be mindful of the general professional decorum that you would want to have at an event.
All right, great. Now, nearly any time the topic of holiday or office parties is discussed, alcohol consumption is a primary concern. Many experts recommend that employers do not serve alcohol at these events. And the main concern, probably not the only one, about alcohol is that an employee may drink and drive. However, the reality is that many employers do provide or allow alcohol at these parties. According to BLR's Holiday Practices Survey, 46% of employers allow alcoholic beverages at these events. So if I'm an employer who has decided to provide alcohol, what best practices would you advise?
Sure, and one of the things that I have is as a personal practice. I always say good practices, not best practices, because I think that we can always improve. So I think a good practice would be to, if you are going to serve alcohol, would be to, if you're going to limit it, because that's been is particular here in California, limitations, 2 drinks, drink tickets, that type of thing. If you're going to limit it, I would explain why. And the why is because we want to make it fun and yet safe, and we want to encourage that. We also want to make sure, under any circumstances, but particularly if alcohol is going to be served, that this is voluntary. And then also, as I'd mentioned before, encourage a designated driver. Think about taxi vouchers or, your favorite mobile app driving service, and think about that and either giving a discount or covering that charge. But here's an additional twist on that, which I don't think a lot of employers think about. Oftentimes what they'll do is say, if you want to ride home, we want you to, if you've found that, either the alcohol has hit you harder or you just don't want to risk it, we'll give you a voucher or a discount or cover the charge so you can get home safely. But the part that I always think about is, well, how are they going to get their car back? If they drive there, then how are they going to get their car? And a lot of people, it's my belief, that a lot of people don't exercise that because then they may not have a way to get their car back in the morning. So pay for both trips, there and back, or if someone drives themselves and then realizes I don't want to drive home, then pay for the one home and then the one back in the morning to get your car. If they can't get a ride from somebody else, say that you will pay both. If we encourage people to have a designated driver, but for whatever reason, will pay both ways. And again, that may seem like a lot. It could be a pricey amount, but it's going to be nothing compared to the cost, let alone the potential cost of lives involved if something goes awry. And so that certainly is something that could be encouraged. Another thing that I don't think many employers think about, but again, this goes to my work, we can constantly improve, is how about having some standard, my friend calls it mocktails, for everyone. So for example, you could have 3 drinks that are like a cucumber mint vodka drink, but the mocktail is the cucumber mint drink. It's prepared in the same exact way. It's just going to be non-alcoholic. Is it going to be a mocktail or is it going to be a cocktail? And with those in mind, it's not as if the only thing for someone who doesn't want to drink is either a 7-Up or a ginger ale or something not very fun and festive. It's doing these types of things, having some, again, it's a little bit of thought that goes a long way. It doesn't then result in just being a drinking party. So, for example, in addition to the mocktails, what about some fun activities? So it could be a casino night where people are betting, and the money that they win perhaps could go to a charity. So they're really trying to actually win as much money as possible, because that means that there's more money that's going to go to an adopted charity. It could be a bowling event. It could be something for an adopted charity. So, for example, maybe they are needing to, maybe they have gifts for a charity and they need them to be wrapped. People can, wrap presents or something, or you can have a variety of things going on for people to do other than just, quote, sit around and drink, and have bottles of water tray passed around as well. It's just those little tiny things that help. And then I would also encourage having bottles of water as you're going out from the event. Again, it's just encouraging, endeavoring to encourage safety and mindfulness, that it's not just going to be a drink fest. Something else to think about is not just where the party's going to be, but when is the party going to be. So, for example, one could have it either on a Saturday or a Sunday, a brunch event or lunch event or afternoon event. And oftentimes, as compared to an evening event, these types of events have a less chance of imbibing too much or excessively by many of the attendees. We want to be mindful not to necessarily have bottomless mimosas for the brunch, but think about how a brunch event or an afternoon event may not be that same type of evening drink fest.
I think that's very helpful tips. Thanks for those. And now let's turn to what many people see as the other big challenge, and that's maybe also related to alcohol, but that's sexual harassment. What can employers do to guard against things like sexual jokes, innuendos, unwanted sexual advances, or other improper behavior?
Okay. I like to say that, again, it's going to sound like a broken record, but communication is the first step to the key to all of this. Gentle reminders that what we want to do is, just because we're going to be having fun, don't forget to put your thinking cap on. This is not an opportunity to say something to someone that you've pined after all year. Do not do that. Just keeping it clean, to your point about jokes or, double entendres or what have you. Acknowledge in the reminder that, that alcohol, some see alcohol as liquid courage, and you're going to encourage them as an employer not to drink to the point where you're going to say something that you would not normally say to your coworker or in a working environment. Again, keeping it clean, keeping it professional, keeping it fun, keeping it safe. Those types of things. Again, not talking down to employees, but again, just acknowledging that what we're here to do is have fun and say thank you for all the hard work.
All right, so that's alcohol problems and harassment problems. What other things can potentially go wrong at one of these company holiday parties, regardless of whether alcohol is served, that employers should be aware of and guard against?
Absolutely. I think that certain topics of discussion can make what could be a fun event turn quickly in another direction. It could be, and we don't have to look very far for this, politics. Some of the hot button topics that are going on in the news, religion, that's brought up in some fashion. Certain unfortunately, I say, the hot button topics can be a variety of ones, but it could be something that just happened in the news that day. It might be a shooting. There's been so many of them, and people a lot of people, it's been my experience anyway, that I don't think that they're thinking they're bringing up something that could be contentious or could create something that's uncomfortable for folks, but they're just trying to make conversation. So I think, again, in that communication, that gentle reminder of what the goals are for the party is that we want to be respectful of all views and perspectives. So consider before bringing up something that could be viewed as a hot button topic. And that although you may want to discuss that with your friends or family, perhaps with guests where the goal is to have an enjoyable time, festive, and in gratitude for hard work, that's not the time or place for it. I think people can understand there's a time and place for everything, and what the point of this is to have a festive time.
Well, this is great guidance for our listeners. So, Michelle, do you have any final thoughts you want to give to listeners who are planning their company's holiday party?
Again, I think one of the big things is just don't forget your thinking cap. Really kind of bring it down to a level where employees can relate to it, and that is, we can't ensure necessarily, guarantee that there won't be a problem, but what we can do is get everyone invested in trying to make this as enjoyable and as fun and as grateful as it's meant to be. And perhaps that is helping some of the management level individuals who will be attending, giving them some perhaps go-to ways in which to steer a conversation away from a hot-button topic if they might be overhearing it, or asking questions, get some, always talk about pad responses, but how about some, prepped, ready-to-go ways in which to bring a conversation more in a festive and thankful way.
Well, that's very, very good. Michelle, thanks a lot for joining us today and providing these helpful tips.
Thank you so much. I really do enjoy this, and I really am an advocate for trying to make this the best that you can, and everybody's safe and happy, the next morning.
Well, thanks so much. Listeners,
Sure.
Please let me know what HR Works should cover next. sbruce@blr.com. Thanks for listening. This is Steve Bruce for HR Works.
The opinions expressed on HR Works do not represent legal or any other type of professional advice and should not be used as a substitute for legal advice from a qualified attorney licensed in your state.